Hey guys, welcome to our edition today for talking about the new M3 and M4 drivers by Taylormade. By now you'll all have heard a little bit about the new kind of twist face technology and Taylormade's new latest and greatest technology that they've put into their drivers, and we're here today to give you a little bit of our take on that and talk a little bit about why we think that it might be of benefit to you. So I think before we kind of get into twist face and really what it's going to do for you, the golfer, you know, let's go back a little bit. Let's go back and look at some of the other technologies Taylormade have had over the years. Okay, so Taylormade, let's make no bones about it, Taylormade, when they were making shafts with bubbles in them and the Fire Soul driver, they were that close to going out of business, right? I worked for Taylormade during, you know, about 10 years ago, and there's no doubt about it. At that time, they were going in the wrong direction, and they flipped that around, and they started bringing out technology like inverted cone, like FCT, where they're able to move, obviously, the shaft independent from the face. You were able to move a sole plate on the bottom, the adjustable sole plate technology. So this is just another evolution of Taylormade pushing the envelope of innovation. So, you know, I've heard a lot of things this week about people saying, well, bulge and roll has worked for 100 years, you know, why change it? Well, the horse and cart worked pretty well, but you still got to move on, okay? So, you know, we've got to figure out ways of changing the face and making it more friendly for the golfer. So, Mikey, why don't we talk a little bit about the difference between M3 and M4? One major noticeable difference, obviously the weighting system, and that's carried on from M1 and M2 into M3 and M4. So it's a little bit different this year.
Absolutely. So there's 11 grams in each weight.
Yep.
More movable to put both weights in the fade or draw, or all the way up into the low section for raw speed.
And it's got a new name. It's no longer called the T-Track.
No, it's the Y-Track.
The Y-Track. Okay. So T-Track, remember last year's M1 and 2016's M1, the weight from front toe to heel, the weight from front to back, so two independent weights. When you really wanted to get creative, you could actually take those two weights out and put two in the front, two in the back, wherever you would want it. But they've changed that this year, and they've went to a slightly different weighting system. So last year's weights were 15 and 12, had 27 grams of independent weight. This year they've got 22, so a little bit different for sure. What was your first impressions? Today's the first day you saw it. So when you sat it down, what did you think of the footprint and all that stuff?
Personally, it sits a little bit flatter.
Yep.
And a lot more open than the average driver that I've seen.
We talked a little bit about the open, and you know, I guess that's going to be a byproduct of the toe sitting up and away, that they've kind of peeled the toe back so it has a little bit more loft and is pointed a little bit more to the right. So that's going to help. I think it's going to help the players, the better players who kind of like that driver to sit a fraction open. It's going to look a little more user friendly. Twist face. Let's talk a little bit about bulge and roll. Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about bulge and roll because there's going to be a lot of people here that are watching this or maybe have watched other videos and go, what was bulge and roll anyway? You know, maybe that was a term that you hadn't heard before. So bulge and roll in the driver, bulge being the curvature from toe to heel, roll being the curvature from top to bottom, was what helped the ball be deflected offline in order to compensate for the curvature the ball was going to create. So if I'm going to hold this driver in the middle right here, okay, and if we kind of simulate deflection, toe strike, okay, the face opens, all right, so the bulge on the driver helps deflect that ball out to the right because that ball is going to gear inwards. Okay, that gearing means the ball is going to turn, it's going to rotate in towards the middle of the driver. So if we didn't have bulge and roll, or certainly in this case bulge, the ball would start more online and it would just snap hook to the left. Okay, so what bulge allowed the ball to do was to start out to the right, then curve back. But Taylormade found that that was only good in robot testing. Okay, that worked in robot testing, you know, when you could sort of make a perfect strike, but they found that, you know, users, players, consumers, they didn't do that as much as robots did it. So what the kind of human testing showed was that they actually needed a little bit more loft and a little bit more of an open face in order to kind of change that launch direction. Okay, so that's the function of twist face. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the tech that we've kind of got going on in the new drivers, M3 and M4. So M3, we talked a little bit about Y-Track. Well, obviously the adjustable weighting system, so it's a little bit different this year. But another addition that really kind of has been maybe talked about a little bit less is this this hammerhead technology.
Yep.
Okay, so Mike, tell us a little bit about hammerhead and what that's going to do for the golfer.
Yeah, so a little bit reinforced outer part of the face, so it's thinner and a little bit lighter.
Yep.
Generally will help with club head speed.
Yep, a little bit on the off-center hits, so we're going to get a little bit more face flex. We're going to get a little bit more help on those toe and heel strikes. So it's all about saving it. It's all about saving sort of the kind of loss on those miss hits. Okay, trying to create as much energy as we possibly can. So most drivers, when we hit them in the middle, to be honest, are going to do a pretty similar thing. The big thing the manufacturers have been chasing for several years now is how to make the perimeter of the driver faster, more forgiving. How can they minimize? And that's obviously where the kind of whole twist face theory has come from, because we're not talking about what it does when you hit it in the middle. We're talking about what it does when you hit it in the high toe and the low heel. So this is all about the off-center strike sort of story. So we've got twist face, hammerhead, and then something we've picked up on this morning, which maybe hasn't been certainly Taylormade haven't even talked about it in the slightest, is the this sort of raised part on the crown and the top of both drivers. Now, I'm a former Taylormade employee. I worked for Taylormade for several years. So this to me reminds me of what was called at the time dual crown. So in the burner superfast range of around 2009, Taylormade had dual crown technology, which was allowed them at the time. It was a little bit more aerodynamic in shape, and it also allowed the CG of the driver to be lower and further back. So it had a kind of high piece on top, then this low kind of perimeter of the driver. A lot of golfers will probably remember that particular driver. It was a high performer at the time. So this to me looks like they're trying to evolve dual crown back into the driver. It just sits up on here. It's just a little bit raised, and it looks to me like that's going to be an aerodynamic story from Taylormade. So lots of tech. It's absolutely packed, top to bottom. There's so much going on these new drivers that it's kind of everything is in there to benefit the off-center strike. Okay, so Mike talked a little bit about M3. I've got M4. So Taylormade, since really the kind of evolution of, you would have R7 in burner, you would have R9 in burner super fast. They always had a technical product and they always had a speed product, and it's the same now. So this is the technical product, adjustable weights, more adjustment. It looks more techy. If you just even look at the amount of carbon this year on the bottom of it, the thing looks like an F1 car. Yeah. I mean, it's really, really sleek. It looks sharp. M4 is a little bit different. So it's going to be an evolution of last year's M2. So if you used M2 or tried it or had success with it, M4 is probably going to be the route that you take with it. So, we're taking on a next evolution of geoacoustic, which is when they recessed the toe, they made the driver sound a little bit more explosive. They were able to gain some weight savings from the geoacoustic, and what they were able to do was actually make the head slightly bigger, but with the recessed toe, it still conformed to the 460cc limit. So this is your kind of speed package, a little bit cheaper as well for the customers out there who are kind of interested in the cost side of things. This year, believe you're going to be looking at, in Canadian dollars, $629. You're going to be looking at about $529, somewhere around that for M4. So a little bit of a difference there. Who's the golfer, Mike, that you think will be an M3 sort of player? Who's going to be suited to that one?
Find more that customer that's looking for the correctiveness of a driver.
Yep.
When draw and fade first came out, that kind of sold them on they're going to be able to hit a lot straighter.
Yep.
But now this is a whole new technology. They can miss it and it still have the ability to come back, but still needing to put the right swing on it.
Without a doubt. And then obviously the ability to dial it in that little bit more, that might be something that the better player is able to see, because they have the consistency of strike, and we're not here today to say if you're this player don't hit it, and if you're that player don't go and hit this one. This is just kind of our take on it. We've worked with these products, these types of products for a long time, so it tends to be the better player who can see the difference with the adjustable weights, and when you move that weighting back a little bit, yeah, sure, you'll see a little bit more launch, a little bit more spin. You'll see the head deflect a little bit more upwards in order to create some more dynamic loft. So, you know, those types of players I think will gravitate probably towards M3. And M4 is going to be, again, about forgiveness and speed. So if you want to hit it further and you want to hit it straighter, you're probably going to go towards the M4. Last night we saw Dustin Johnson, he chose M4. So he done all the testing. He started off originally in M3. I think the original pictures from the testing showed him hitting M3, but he gamed M4 at the Tournament of Champions in Hawaii, and he was pretty good with it. So, you know, I think Taylormade this morning will be celebrating pretty hard the fact that, you know, their brand new driver was put in play by the world #1, and then he went on to completely dominate the field with his driver. So, you know, that's an indication that there's something in this. Okay, there's definitely some technology here that's going to be useful for the golfers out there. Is it for everyone? You got to test it. You know, you've got to come in and test it with us. Be fit, get the right shaft, make sure that you've got all the sort of variables that go into it, get them all in place, and make sure that it's the right one for you. There's other good products coming out this year, but this is definitely one that you guys are going to want to get a hold of and try. Okay. Mike, anything else you wanted to kind of talk about with it?
I'm excited for this year with the drivers.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of stuff about this driver we still don't know about, you know, with some of the cosmetic features, but very excited to start fitting with it.
I think that's a good point. There is still a lot of unknowns with it. You know, Twist Face is brand new, and the numbers that Taylormade have come up with so far. So they've given us a sort of a chart that said if you used to miss the fairway by 8 yards, you'll now miss it by 1. Well, that's a pretty bold statement. That you know the 8-to-1 ratio. You know, that's a really bold statement, and we'll be very curious to see the driving accuracy stats at the end of the year and see if they were able to sort of, you know, back that up with performance. But there's something in it, guys. There's no doubt about it. Toe strikes do tend to violently turn to the you know, left for a right-handed golfer and vice versa for a lefty. So any help in you know, correcting those, no doubt about it, we're going to see improvements. So exciting to sort of, you know, talk about it with you today. We're excited to have it here at TXG, and you know, book in, come and see us, and we'll test and see if it's the one for you.